Hello everyone, my name is Moses and you are welcome to Stable Rock Farms. On today's episode, we are going to look at the start to finish process on how you plant and maintain your groundnuts. Your groundnut farm. If you are planning on going into groundnuts and you're not sure on what to do or the good processes to follow, this is the video for you to watch. So to begin with, there are a few things we need to know to ensure that our groundnut gives us the best possible yield, right? There's herbicide application, there's fertilizer application, there's the tilling application, so many different aspects of groundnut farming that we need to do to ensure that we get the best yield possible. So let's get right into it. One of the first things we need to do, obviously, is to clear your land, right? Ensure all the storms, stones, or any impurities on your farm are cleared. Then next is to clear the weeds, right? So if the weeds already on the farm are too high up, maybe a meter, 2 meters, you trim it a little before you apply your pre-planting herbicide. When I say pre-planting herbicide, what do I mean? I have a sample here for what we are using. We're using Roundup as our pre-planting herbicide. Now, I need to be very explicit here. Roundup is very destructive, so ensure that you put the recommended dosage. You don't want to go too much because Roundup may have long-term effects on you, right? So ensure that you follow the recommended dosage on your farm, right? So once you apply Roundup on your farm, you wait for about 2 weeks, which is what we do. You wait for about 2 weeks before you start tilling your ground, right? In this case, a tractor comes, or if you can't afford a tractor, you do some manual tilling, you till your ground, right? And then again, if you can afford it, you make your ridges. You don't have to, but we do that because we feel like it's better for our groundnuts, right? So we'll make ridges, right? Good. So once you make your ridges, you're good to go. You are ready to plant. So what comes next? The planting, obviously, right? So if you watched our previous video, you notice that we have some manual planters, right? So that is what we're using to plant our groundnuts on our ridges, right? So for the planting process, what do we do to ensure that everything is done according to plan, right? Number one, we're using the manual planter because with the manual planter, we'll be able to have better control over spacing, right? Spacing is very important so that you get the right recommended plant population on your farm, right? Then another very key thing to why we're using the planter is because the planter enables you to be able to plant and fertilize at the same time, which is what we're doing. We are planting our groundnuts and fertilizing said groundnut on the exact same day. So what fertilizer are we using? We're going with SSP, right? So as we're planting, as you know, our manual planter has a double compartment, right? So what that means is that there's one compartment that allows for you to pour your seeds, and then there's another compartment that allows for you to pour your fertilizer in it. So once you are pushing your manual planter, you are able to both plant your seeds and plant your fertilizer in the recommended spacing into the soil, right? So what happens after you plant your fertilizer and your seeds? Next thing is the pre-emergence herbicide, right? You need to spray your pre-emergent herbicide after you plant, right? Now, before I tell you which pre-emergent herbicide we're going with, it's very key to know that after you plant your seeds, you cover it with soil. Number one, this is good for germination because the seeds need contact with soil to be able to germinate, right? But also, you want to make sure the seeds are covered so that your pre-emergent herbicide, you don't spray it directly on your seeds. That, you end up with some losses without even knowing the cause, but the cause would be that the pre-emergent herbicide was applied directly on it. So cover your soil, not too compacted, not too much, just enough to aid germination and to restrict the the herbicide from having direct contact to the seeds. Good. So now, which pre-emergent herbicide are we going with? We're going with Butterforce, right? We're going with Butterforce as our pre-emergent herbicide. Maybe I can just show you what this looks like. So we're going with Butterforce. So we are going to plant about 5 bags of groundnuts, the 50 kg bag. So that's 250 kg of groundnut. So as you know, we're going to need a lot of herbicides to go with. So we have 5 cartons of Butterforce. We know we're definitely not going to use all of it, but hey, it doesn't hurt to have more than you need, right? We can always use it next year. We also sell herbicides, so if we feel like we need to sell, we'll add it to the stock that is usually kept aside for selling. But anyway, we have put aside 5 cartons of Butterforce as our pre-emergent herbicide. Now, you have tilled your ground, you have applied you have planted your seeds, you have applied your pre-emergent herbicide. Life is good, right? Now, if you remember, I mentioned that we will be planting our fertilizer in the soil on the same day we're planting our seeds. Now, SSP is a slow release fertilizer. What does that mean? It does not seep into the soil immediately you plant. It releases slowly over time, right? So once you plant it on the same day as your groundnut, it steadily, at a good pace, releases the nutrients into the soil, and your groundnut gets the best type of nutrients all through the process, right? So this will aid your groundnuts to do very well. Good. So now you have applied your Butterforce. Butterforce is a very good pre-emergent. In fact, that is the one I will recommend for anyone, right? So if you, at this point on your farm, you have done everything I've explained, you would notice that it will take a very long time, hopefully, before you see any weeds on your farm. Now, what does that translate to the yield of your groundnuts? When there is no grass, when there are no weeds that are competing for nutrients with your groundnut, that means your groundnuts are going to flourish. Groundnuts are going to do very well, which in turn has a huge effect on your yield. Now, if you are lucky, you may not see weeds again because Butterforce has done a very good job. However, in some cases, obviously, it's not a one blanket approach. In some cases, you would notice that there are some weeds that are emerging on your farm. Now, if this is your situation, there is a post-emergent herbicide that you can go with. If you have access to Legume Force, I would say that is the recommendation I'll go with. However, in my case, I could not find Legume Force this year, so I'm going with Gallant Super, right? I'll open this up so that you can take a look. So this is the post-emergent herbicide we're going with. It's called Gallant Super. Now this is very expensive, but the advantage to this is that you don't need much of it to be applied on your farm. This 1 liter bottle should be able to take care of 2 hectares of land. So unless you are planting a lot of grounds like us, you may just need a few bottles of this and it will do on your farm. Just check your agro dealer. I would recommend Legume Force. However, if you can't find any, Gallant Super is a very good good alternative to go with, right? Now, at this point, you have followed almost all the recommended practices on your farm. You are on your way to a very good harvest if your soil is good soil, right? Now, there is one hack that I will show you in a subsequent video, right? When your groundnuts are around the 50 to 70 days post sowing, there is something you can do that can increase the yield of your groundnuts up to 20%, right? It could be 10, it could be 15, it could be 20 if you're lucky, right? Now, this is something that we've noticed that really helps. Now, how does groundnut provide, the groundnuts, it starts off as flowers, right? And then these flowers find their way into the soil. When they have contact with the soil, it then makes those groundnuts that the flowers turn into the groundnuts. I don't know whether to call it fruits or pods. Exactly, the pods. The flowers become pods, and then the pods have those groundnuts in them, right? So now, a lot of the flower does not get adequate contact with the soil, so that has an effect on your yield. You end up losing a lot of future groundnuts, right? Now, when you're at between 50 to 70 days post sowing, if you have a drum, yes, a drum, I'll probably put a photo of a drum in there so that you know the drum I'm talking about. This is the regular drum, right? So when you're between 50 to 70 days of sowing your groundnuts, you push this drum on your plants, right? I will show this in a later video when we do it on our farm. But when you do this, some of those flowers that did not have good contact with the soil, or those that had contact with the soil but it did not really go into the soil very well, the drum aids in pushing it deeper, compacting it into the soil. So once it does that, it increases the number of groundnuts that you would have had if you didn't do that. It's an amazing technique that we've noticed has really done wonders for us, and we're definitely doing that this year. And now that we have started documenting all that we do on our farm, you will also get to take a look at it and see. So I mean, if you do all of this, you're lucky you get the right amount of rainfall. Your soil is good. Honestly, you are going to have an amazing harvest. You're going to have very good yield on your farm. Right now, the seeds that we're planting are in a separate location. So this is one of our warehouses. I will take you there so that you can take a look at our seeds. We're planting 250 kg of this groundnut, and I will show it to you and what we're doing to ensure that we have the best possible seeds prior to even going to the farm. Let's go there now. Okay, so now we're going to look at the groundnut varieties that we are planting this season. So if you could just come a little closer. If you notice, I told you earlier we're going to plant about 5 bags of groundnut. This represents 1 bag, right? This is 50 kg of groundnut. It has been carefully picked and selected, so I will explain what I mean by that shortly. If you notice, this is a half bag here. This is another half bag. So these two will represent 1 bag. We have another over here. This is another half bag. If you notice, this is slightly full bag. If you notice, this variety is a little different from this one. Let's look at the 2 varieties. These are the varieties we're planting. This I believe is called Banada. This I don't remember the name. I'll put up a name for you to see. The difference between these 2 is just preference. However, this slightly matures before this one. So if you plant these 2 on the same day, you tend to harvest this before this. So those are the varieties that we're planting. What I mentioned earlier when I said carefully selected, if you take a look here, you'll notice that these seeds are not as clean as the one I showed you earlier there. So what happens is, once you have the groundnut that you are ready to plant, don't just say, okay, now I have my groundnut, I'm going to plant. No, you carefully sift through each and every single seed, right? You make sure the rotten ones are taken out. You make sure the extremely dry ones are taken out. You make sure the broken ones are taken out, because if it's broken, it's not going to germinate, right? So you have to carefully select. So when I say we're planting 5 bags of 50 kg each, that means the 250 kg of groundnut seeds that we're planting are all going to be carefully selected, each and every seed. This is how you ensure you have the best possible seeds to even start with. That is, in fact, that is half the battle. Once you get that sorted, you're already at an advantage compared to someone who just goes into the market, purchases any seed and just plants. You also have to make sure your seed is not too old, right? The seed that you're planting, make sure, if possible, was harvested in the previous harvest period, right? So now, what else? These are just a few things that you look out for when planting. Next video I'm going to roll out will show you the process in which the planting, fertilizing, and first herbicide application is going to take place. So that is, probably even some of the pre-planting activities, such as roundup application, tilling, ridging. I'll probably show some of those too. So that will be the next video. Then the next one after that will probably be explained in the next video, but is most likely going to be the drum rolling that I talked about. But anyway, the point is there's much more to look out for. So we appreciate you watching. We suggest that you subscribe so that you keep seeing more from us, and we'll see you in the next video. Thank you.